What do you think will be the main trends that we will see playing out within financial services in 2026 and why?
Yeah, I love this question. I think that there's a couple different anchors for that innovation. The first one that we're seeing, and we hope to be part of driving forward, is the transition of the finance team towards increasingly strategic work. Brex sits in a position where we help manage spend in order to drive better decision making. But the vast majority of the work that folks will do in our system is much more tactical, much more procedural. It's not the type of work that drives the business forward. So we believe that AI is very much going to shift increasing portion of the finance team towards strategic work. The other thing that I'm seeing in the industry that I think will be a major trend this year is the emergence of stablecoins. Not just because we now have a strong regulatory framework to create safety for the larger financial institutions to jump in, but we're actually starting to see real use cases, particularly around cross-border payments and settlement. So I'm actually very excited about that. The last trend that I've also begun to see more in the past year, and I think will accelerate in the year ahead, is the shift in the talent profile for finance teams towards folks who are increasingly able to build automations, build agents, and actually be a party in the automation of their work with AI, much like learning how to use Excel macros 15, 20 years ago was a differentiator in the talent profile on a finance team. I think that this will be the same analogy for Gen AI and the use of agents.
That's interesting because I read an article that McKinsey is now using AI tools or inviting their candidates to use AI tools to complete the recruitment process tasks or case studies and so on, because that simulates what the real work will be like for them. So that's an interesting observation that you're seeing that as well. So thinking about what you guys are specifically working on, what's the one thing that you think could be a game changer for your users the year ahead?
Yeah, so we just announced Agents on Brex, which is the the next generation of generative AI on top of our platform, and this is our sort of contribution to that acceleration towards more strategic work. So our belief is that in the finance team, we want the finance team to be able to delegate an increasing amount of that more tactical work to agents that run on our platform. And the way that we've gone about building this is to embody and personify different roles and responsibilities in the finance team as individual agents on Brex that can effectively act as sort of like an outsourced contractor and receive delegated SOPs to execute on behalf of the team, giving them immense leverage compared to the amount of effort that would go into normally administering the system. So I'll make that more concrete because I think it really helps to have an example or two, which is one of the first agents that we released is something that we've called the audit agent, which is an agent that's responsible for not only sort of internalizing the expense policy of a company, but also looking across transactions for waste, fraud, and abuse. Many enterprise and publicly traded finance teams will have an audit function that is responsible for doing sort of either sampling based or reviewing 100% of transactions to look for sort of first party employee fraud. So it's a task that's extremely germane to generative AI. And so we built an agent that is specific to that purpose. And as we've scaled this up, we've introduced other agents like an accounting agent that's focused on helping close the books at the end of the month, automating coding. We've put an agent in the hands of every employee and manager on the Brex platform to help with documentation and sort of expense report completion. And so our view here is that we're building this ecosystem of agents that can collaborate with one another to embody roles that may not be strategic in your finance team.
Well, I mean, that sounds great and sounds like a good time saver, but obviously a huge issue for any user of AI is this idea of hallucinations and having to kind of double check things before you pass it on. When do you think users will be able to fully trust the tools that you are providing or, that's out there to the point where you don't need a human to supervise or to verify or sign off, if we can ever get there?
Yeah, I think everybody goes on a journey here, and we've actually been really cognizant of the evolution of trust that is required to get to sort of full and complete hands-off delegation. It's actually kind of interesting to look back over the past 2 or 3 years as well, where the early versions of these LLMs, these consumer grade LLMs, were horrifically bad at math and hallucinated a ton. Really spooked finance leaders at the time, and they've become progressively better. So we've kind of thought about like how do we take our customers and users on a journey of trust. And for us, a big portion there is to start with tasks that are lower stakes. So a good example of this is the completion of an expense report on behalf of employees, where if the memo field is wrong or if the business purpose is a bit vague, we can. It's very easy for a member of the finance team to follow up with that employee and get more information. So lower stakes interactions are where we begin. We then shift upwards, sort of graduate users into a position where they're able to where the system will get to know them, form memories, and offer to automate specific discrete tasks where there's a high degree of confidence that the system will behave properly. And then as the system continues to learn, as the user builds confidence and sort of observing it and collaborating with it, they can graduate to total automation. And we actually have this graduation path baked into each of the agents in our system. I think what's been really interesting is to baseline the performance of these agents against actual human performance. I think that has also been a key unlock in the development of trust, because it turns out humans are actually quite bad at a lot of these things as well. And what we've actually heard from controllers and accountants particularly is that we'll go back to that sort of expense report example. Controllers and accountants will report that the LLM and the agent does a much better job than employees do on average at explaining the business justification of an expense in a way that they can use to immediately code that transaction and close the books without having to follow up. So it's a little bit like doing quality control on humans versus quality control on agents, and seeing that the agents generally will already outperform humans. It's a sort of one of the other ways in which folks will build trust.
Do you ever think there could be like a liability issue? Let's say one of your users is using your AI tool and they sign off something, but your AI tool got it wrong and therefore the company lost money. Do you think this can come back and harm you? Like they try to sue you and blame you? Because I guess if an employee did that, they could fire them or whatever, take them to a tribunal perhaps. But where do you sort of distance yourself from that? Do you think about that, or is that something you're considering?
We definitely think about that. Not so much from the how do we defend Brex against liability, but rather how do we build confidence in our users such that they can actually trust the system to assist them in their job. I think for the next several years, at least, just like other highly regulated industries, you're still going to have humans sort of performing final sign-off and attesting to the accuracy of the work. And to that end, like we've built everything to be extremely transparent and to put the human in the position of control, such that they're never going to witness the system doing something that or completing an automation that they haven't signed off on before in advance. And we ensure that there's really maximal transparency in all the decision making. I think that there is ultimately some risk involved, like with any new technology, but I worry less about this, because in practice we see so little hallucinations or inaccuracies these days. Like the technology has been leaping forward almost exponentially every 3 to 6 months. So I think that this problem is sort of rapidly resolving itself based on the state of advancement in the underlying tech.
So zooming out a little bit and changing tech, you're obviously a CTO, very busy. You have your BAU stuff, but you're also kind of now tasked with figuring out what you guys going to do in AI. How do you balance the kind of normal day-to-day stuff, the backlog, if you will, with also making time and headspace for all the new stuff that you could and should and might want to do?
Yeah, so within product development, as we think about how to bring generative AI to bear in our product for our customers, we've taken a bit of a novel approach I would consider, which is that we've tried to be the ones to disrupt ourselves before some new YC company, announces a launch of a Brex clone on Twitter, and as a team of 5 individuals building it. We want to be the ones to do that to ourselves, and so a big part of how we've been able to continue business as usual while also sort of getting started and ensuring that we don't get disrupted is we've tried to answer the question, how do we build Brex if we started again today? And so the answer to that question is very much start with a small team, start with a very interdisciplinary group of individuals, and allow them to work in a different manner using different technology choices, leaning into the use of agentic coding tools, for instance, building in a separate code base, really trying to emulate every element of an early stage startup to build off on the side and have the freedom to explore these ideas. And so that is actually how we got to the Agents on Brex platform that we announced late last year. This team has largely executed independently over the past year. And our conception here is that we'll eventually have a bit of a reverse merger of that, of sort of the larger Brex business as usual, the core of our business, into this sort of growing AI center of excellence that has defined the next generation way of building and working. And I'm really excited about this because nobody's really waiting to start adopting this working model. I think what we're seeing is that teams within the core of our business are looking at our AI team and saying, oh, I really like the way that they do this. I really enjoy the way that they lean into agents to create the first version of a feature before any human sort of gets hand on keyboard with code. So I want to adopt that on my team. And so we're actually seeing sort of that propagation of the way of working into the core of the business where the best ideas are kind of surviving versus trying to start the change and do it across thousands of people from day one.
And thinking about innovation, something I write a lot about is the modern bank stack. And so what I mean by that is the fact that traditional banks are partnering with technology companies as a way to get distribution or to collaborate to bring new services to market. That symbiosis between the bank and the tech company. Do you have some good examples of how that's been happening within Brex, or how do you foresee that evolving in the future?
Yeah, banking has always been like a highly interoperable ecosystem. I think that it's really kind of interesting to see how this is projected forth into the modern era with fintechs. And I think the way that we've played a role in this, particularly over the past year and a half, has been through our Brex Embedded offering, which is really at its core, Brex taking what it is excellent at, which is payments and software that enables control, and we've made it possible to embed that into other financial applications. So we announced partnerships last year with Navan, which is a travel management corporation, very modern way of doing managed travel, as well as Zip and Coupa, who are both companies that specialize in procurement. We've with Brex Embedded made it possible to take our global card with sort of our unprecedented controls and the ability to do a massive amount of accounting automation and run this agent platform. We made it possible to embed that seamlessly into these other financial applications. So that's sort of our contribution to this broader ecosystem. And I think that what we're seeing is larger traditional financial institutions are looking for opportunities to embed that very same set of technology from more modern competitors into their stack. We actually back at the end of last year, announced a partnership with Fifth Third Bank, which is sort of the next generation of our embedded offerings, where we're now going to be taking our card and expense management offering and embedding it alongside traditional banking services offered by a very large regional bank to many strong American businesses throughout the heartland, which is very exciting for us as a Silicon Valley company. It's a way for us to grow and facilitate a really nice like 1 + 1 = 3 outcome within a more traditional sector of the banking industry.
James, super fascinating. Thank you very much for your thoughts and insight. I look forward to following you to see what's happening and what's coming out in the coming months and years ahead.